Hello, my name is Mordred Viking, and I'd like to welcome you to this game of Hearts of Iron 4, and as you may notice, the splash screen here is a little bit different, because this is La Resistance. So the plan at the moment is that I'm going to record 3 or 4 episodes now, so that I can have a couple of videos ready for the embargo when it lifts. So if you're watching this, the embargo has just lifted, and I will be continuing this game over on twitch.tv/MordredViking, which is where I stream it. That's going to be at 5 PM GMT, so British time. The idea at the moment is we are going to be playing as Free France. So let's start a new game. Let's switch over to France. Despite the devastation of the Great War, France has been on the road to recovery thanks to a strong economy. However, the depression has still affected the country, and the new German regime has no interest in paying the war reparations stipulated by the Treaty of Versailles. When the treaty was signed, a French marshal famously remarked that it was not peace, but an armistice of 20 years. Those 20 years are now rapidly running out. So France is in an interesting position because they are right on the border of Germany, and Germany tends to be a little bit aggressive. We are going to be playing this on Historical. I'm going to be playing this as if I was doing the Fortress France game, so basically doing the usual thing of building up France, building up the colonies, building everything else up. And if France should happen to be defeated in their home territories, then we are going to retreat to Africa or wherever it is that we can establish our colonies and then continue the war from there. I should note that La Resistance has reworked the French focus tree, so there's going to be a lot of new things over there. It has also reworked the... No, I think it's only the French that have been reworked. There's now a Spanish focus tree, which eventually can allow for a 4-way civil war. So you can have the nationalists, the republicans, the Carlists, hearkening a little bit to Kaiserreich here, and then the anarchists. Meanwhile, Portugal also has a focus tree. Then there are a bunch of other changes, most importantly being espionage. We will be delving into espionage a little bit, but I'm not intending to be the spy master because I'm not going to have the industry available to do that. Plus, Britain seems to do a fairly decent job of being the spy master. I have played a couple of games. I played one as the UK so I could get an idea of how espionage works exactly and give you a few ideas and tips on how exactly to use those early on. And I also just played an observer game as France just to see what the French could do, basically. So yeah, with that, that's what we're going to run with. Anyway, the debuffs that we start with, or rather the national spirits that we start with, are Victors of the Great War, Recruitable Population minus 0.3, War Support minus 5, and then the painful one, Land Doctrine Research Speed minus 75%, which basically means that we're not going to be able to do land doctrines until we get rid of this. Having emerged victorious from the Great War, the army has developed a dangerously complacent attitude which causes strategic developments to come slowly and with reluctance. We have the disjointed government, so these two have not changed from the beginning. Daily political power cost plus 0.8, which means that we're basically going to have no political power to spend until we get rid of this. We have minus 10 stability and minus 50% surrender limit, so if we get invaded and if they take Paris, it's basically game over. The state of French politics is far from stable. While reforms are needed and welcome, the nation is divided, and getting drawn into a conflict would put it at great risk. And then we also have the Protected by the Maginot Line, which I think is actually one of the most powerful national spirits. It does give you 25% slower planning speed, but it gives you 25% more max planning, which means that it'll take you a while to get your armies in a position where they can go and do some damage, but when they get going and you press the little tick, they do some serious damage. Having fortified the border gives France the opportunity to plan and prepare carefully, but it does sacrifice some flexibility in the event of something unexpected. And then these are just some examples of the focuses that we can get when we actually start playing. So we're going to start this game. I'm going to do this on a regular difficulty, and we're not going to tweak any of the beginning settings. So this is as vanilla an experience as you can expect to see. And we are going to be playing with historical AI focuses just because I don't want this one to be completely bonkers, although we'll probably do that in the future. Alright, let's do this, and let's see if the game is going to immediately fail to load the UI, which is a bug that I frequently get. I seem to be one of the few people that does. No, it loaded properly. Cool. So the first thing you will notice is the icons have changed. They do the same thing with the exception of this one, which is the Intelligence Agency. And this is going to allow us to create an agency, which will give us access to operatives, which are these guys down here. And then those operatives can be sent off on missions to do various sneaky, underhanded, devious things against our opponents, and will also allow us to build up our own agency and give it more abilities and powers, which is under these 5 categories: intelligence, defense, operations, operative training, and cryptology department. This is all stuff that we will get to. I don't want to do this right now because even building the agency will cost civilian factories. Now, this is one thing I should very much stress, because this is the mistake I made in my UK game. Don't do the agency stuff up front. Like, you probably want to start delving into it late 37, early 38, because you will definitely have time to establish all the different branches and departments that you want to get. But you also... it's expensive. It's very, very expensive. Like, we start with 19 factories. We lose 5. That's basically a quarter of our starting industry gone just for a month, admittedly, to get those departments going. And then once we start delving into more, they do get a little bit more expensive. I think some of them are up to like 10 civilian factories. But it can really, really put you back in the early game if you do it too early. But then again, you're also going to want the intel, because the intel system in this is completely overhauled. And this is probably one of my favorite things about it. So if we click on Germany, for example, and then the intel ledger, there is broken down into 4 categories, which gives you a lot of the information you used to have got. So, for example, it will tell you their factories, it will tell you their manpower, it'll tell you the number of convoys they have. And this is just the civilian industrial tab. It will also show you where exactly various things are. So, for example, you're fighting against Germany and you want to kill their oil. You can look for where those synthetic oil refineries are and start bombing them with your strategic bombers, meaning that strategic bombing is a lot more powerful because you can start targeting it rather than just blanket it and like fingers crossed. However, it will only give you that information if you have a high enough intel. So we have 25% intel at the moment. It does go all the way up to 100. And as you can see, there are different percentage amounts, which basically gives you more and more and more information. Not only does it get more accurate, you also get more. And there are some very powerful things which will emerge, and I'll share that with you in a moment. Then we've got army intel. This tells you roughly how many divisions they have, and this is woefully wrong. It'll tell you how many special forces they have, how much deployed manpower they have, so how big their army is. And then this question mark here is telling you how much of their stockpile of weaponry are they actually using. So if this number is like 95%, that means that they've only got a 5% reserve, and you can get a pretty good idea of like how badly they are hurting industrially. So against the Soviets, this is probably going to be like 100. I don't know if it goes over 100%. I haven't actually tested that. That would be something interesting to look into. Then we got the Navy, which will tell you the different types of ships. Oh, actually, for the Army, you will also be able to see what kind of divisions they have. So it'll like break down armor divisions, infantry divisions, policing divisions, etc. And if your intel is high enough, you can actually see what's in those divisions. That's one thing you never used to be able to do. Then we've got the naval. This will show you what task forces they have, what fleets they have, and then also the different types of ships. And you can, again, if you have enough intel, check out the designs of their ships and see if they have any weaknesses. So, for example, if they have a lot of destroyers which don't have anti-submarine warfare, so they're using them as escorts, you can probably be fairly safe to use submarines. Or if they have a lot of highly upgraded submarines, you probably need to start working on your anti-submarine warfare abilities. And then finally, air. And this is much the same thing. You can see the different categories of aircraft, and you can see how many of each they have. So you can, for example, see if they're using light fighters or regular fighters or heavy fighters, for example, or strategic bombers. If you need to start building some heavy fighters to counter the strat bombers, you can find all of that out through the air intel. Now, this is one of my favorite things. Can't see it right now, but this will show you exactly what technologies they have in each category. So you can click on this and it will show you their industry tax. You can click on this one and it'll show you their engineering tax. And it's like that for all of them. And this is especially important because one of the things your operatives can do is steal technology. This is really powerful. If you steal a technology, you get a 200% bonus on research speed for that tech. So for example, as Britain, you could be keeping an eye on Germany, waiting for them to get their early medium tanks and just go and nick it from them, for example. So yeah, that's really quite powerful. The other thing which I've noticed is when we're on the naval tab and your intel is high enough, you can actually see the level of their ports. more importantly, you can see where their ships are repairing. So this is going to make the naval bomber missions, the port strike missions, even more important, because you can actually target them and say, oh, they're all repairing over here. Okay, we'll go and target that and bomb it to oblivion. Probably the most useful against Italy, because Italy does tend to have a bit more trouble in finding repair ports, just because everything here is in range of bombers. Well, Germany does have like the Baltic areas, which are usually a bit harder to hit. So yeah, that's another thing which is going to be really, really handy. I do wonder if this shows you where their aircraft are deployed. It might do. I'm not sure. Because that'll allow you to see where you need to bomb. I haven't really paid much attention to that one, though, I must admit. So yeah, there are a lot of things here which you can see. It gives you a lot more information and intel, gathering of intelligence, either through operatives, through just fighting them, you get information, through breaking their codes, and through recon flights. You can now get recon aircraft, that's a new thing, and radar. Radar also gives you a little bit of intel. Basically, it all gives you a development towards the percentage. So, for example, the 25% we can see so far, 10% of it is because they have limited export, so if they're on free trade, then they probably can see a hell of a lot more. And also because they're fascist, it's just a little leaky. I suspect that, yeah, the Democrats give 20%, the fascists are a little bit more close, they only give you 15%, and then the free trade, which we can also see here, gives you a 20%, no, that's export. Export's 20%, what's free trade going to be? Free trade gives you 40%, so we can already see 60% of what the US is doing just on the industrial side. And then, like I said, like radar, recon flights and all of that will give you even more information. So yeah, there's a lot going on with intel. But like I said, we will get into that at the opportune moment. I just wanted to show that off because it's really cool. Alright, next up we have got our focus tree, and this focus tree has changed. As you can see, this is the French focus. The first decision that we need to make is whether we want to form the Popular Front or whether we want to revive the National Bloc. As it turns out, you can actually do the historical path through either. So you can do the Popular Front, that will give you a more of a socialist side, or you can do the National Bloc, which will give you a slightly more fascist side, but you can still kind of go to the centre and stay with the Allies, which is going to be here. Both of them allow you to get to review foreign policy, both of them allow you to do buy time, and that will lead you down to go with Britain, which is where you get the alliance. It is also possible to form your own bloc, which is join the Entente. And in that one, you basically create your own alliance and then invite Britain to it. Plus, you can invite people like Poland, you can do Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Romania. This is like the little Entente, but now bigger if you have Britain join it. And that is going to bring all of the British dominions with them. The other thing I want to show you is you can zoom. You can zoom quite a long way, and you can scroll around. I mean, you could always do that, but the zoom is really, really cool. So if you need to look in an area in particular, you can zoom out, then you can zoom over here, then you can go over here, and you can just click on stuff even when it's quite small. So if you have most of this memorized, for example, you can just go click, 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 all the way down it. It's nice. The other thing is you can now filter. So these are all things related to technology, and you can see exactly where those are. These are all the industrial tech, so you can see which parts of the focus tree you need to focus to do the industry. And then here for manpower, etc., political violence, stability, and then war support. So there are ways of filtering it, and then also there is a search. Haven't tested this yet to see how good it is, but it is there, and I'm guessing it works on like keywords and things. Cool. So the French tree, as I have started to insinuate, is pretty heavily political. Like all of this is the politics. So you can go communist, you can go democratic, which is like this entire section in the middle, or you can go fascist, which is all the stuff over here, or you can now go monarchist, which is this bit over here. This is basically where you can bring Napoleon back, which is this one. Proclaim the Third Empire. Napoleon VI is then brought in. And then this is basically, I want to go to war with the entire world. We're not doing that this time, but that is almost certainly something I will try in the future. Naval rearmament, and then the air focus over here. The last part of the focus tree, which we haven't really spoken about yet, is this one, devalue the franc. And this is really interesting, because this is very different from anything I've seen in any other focus tree. Basically, the further down this tree you get, the more rewards you will get. However, it's a gamble, because if you invest too much in this, then you're not going to be doing the rearmament techs, or the focuses, which are these ones, and you're not going to do the political ones, which is these ones, and that's where you like sort out all the governmental issues that you are having. But the rewards for doing these are pretty big. So, for example, investing in metropolitan France gives you 4 building slots. Investing in Algerian France gives you 4 building slots. And once you got those, and in fact any time after you've got at least one of these or one of these 3, you can then hit industrial expansion. And that's going to give you 2 civilian factories in metropolitan states that you've previously invested in. So if you've got just metropolitan France and you grab this one, then you're going to get 2 free factories. However, if you've done both of them already, you get 4. Likewise with these, if you've done just West Africa, you get 2 factories. If you've done all 3, you get 6 factories. And that's really cool. I like the sound of that. Ooh, we can get 2 research slots? How many do we start with? Oh, only 3. Okay, so we start with less. Fair enough. And global integration is resource gain efficiency, military factories. And here we go. Adds 2 military factories to every state previously invested in. So that could be up to 10 military. I can count. 10 military factories if we complete all of these. So yeah, I like this system. This really encourages you to try and play the waiting game against Germany, to try and hold them as long as you possibly can in order to get these investments going. The other thing which I want to say is I'm going to be playing this without the benefit of hindsight, so I'm going to play this as if I don't know that France is going to get hit pretty hard. So I will be investing, for example, in France, even though if I was going purely free France, let's run away as quickly as we can, I'd probably ignore these, because this will just boost Germany. Unless you can hold, of course. We'll try. We'll try to hold. Right. Now we need to make a choice, whether we want to go with the National Bloc or if we want to go the Popular Front. With the rise of fascism in Germany and Italy, it has become clear that the fighting on the left has to stop for our cause to survive. A broad Popular Front made up of all the parties on the left will have the popular mandate to finally address the economic conditions that create fascism. So Léon Blum becomes the leader of the Democratic Party. He is a reluctant interventionist, which gives us +5 stability, and then also Lend-Lease tension limit, which might mean that we can Lend-Lease to Poland? No, to Czechoslovakia if they go to war, possibly. And we are the stout defender, so AI would be more likely to focus on defence. Or we can do the National Bloc. The political landscape is growing more and more radical by the day. The left whispers of making common cause with the communists. What is needed now is strong, stable leadership. Strong and stable. Pierre Laval becomes the leader of the Democratic Party. He is a tenacious negotiator who will give us 10% more political power and also trade deal opinion plus 25%. So people are more likely to buy our goods with Laval in charge. And there are actually more ways of influencing trade deal factor now because of espionage. You can basically undermine other people's trade delegations and you can try to boost your own. So there's a bit more to it. Which way do we go? Actually, one thing I'm going to check is which one gives us the most industry. So down here we get consumer goods increases, stability goes up as well, so this will offset our bad stability. However, factory output and dockyard output will go down. I wonder if there's a way of like boosting that or getting rid of it. Inefficient economy is reduced, so 10%. This one gives us decisions, which will get us more military factories. Decisions will cost political power, though, and political power is something we are short on. This just gives military factories. This one removes the inefficient economy. Dirigement, which is civilian to military conversion cost, economy law cost. And then that one's even more factories. 8 factories from that. And that's another 2. These are all in France, okay. Encourage immigration is... yeah, either way can go that. This will start coring Algiers, Constantine and Tlemcen. Non-core manpower. This removes the national spirit full employment, which we don't have yet. I'm guessing that comes through events. And then France Indivisible gives us plus 5% more non-core manpower. And also more compliance in our colonies. That's another thing we'll need to take a look at, because we do have a lot of colonies. Then the French Union, right-wing riots, referendums in various parts of the colonial empire will be held. Some parts may choose to remain to become fully independent. Okay. Then over on this side we have 3 research bonuses to industry. $150% bonus. That's huge. Civilian factory construction speed plus 7.5. Reduces inefficient economy. Military factory and dockyard production. Industrial speed plus 5. Production inefficiency plus 10. Production efficiency growth plus 10. And that's more like laissez-faire. Entrepreneurial, dynamic market. I mean, my mercantile leanings are kind of suggesting that path. And we can do review foreign policy as long as we have not invited the communist ministers or utilised the leagues. So utilise the leagues is this one, which allows you to go fascist or monarchist. So you will not be able to do these diplomatic things if you've done those paths. There's basically their own diplomacy. And if we've gone invite communist ministers. So if we've gone completely communist as opposed to just left-leaning, then we can't do this either. So that's how it kind of locks you out of the like central diplomatic path. I kind of like the idea of this one because this is going to give us more industry. I just like having just raw industry. Whereas this one gives us just bonuses. Force the issue as a communist thing. So we can't go down this. This is all straight up communism. And we can't do the right wing. So it's really this little bit versus this little bit. This is straight up factories, though with penalties. And this one is long-lasting bonuses. I think I'd probably go agricultural protectionism for the civilian factory build speed. I'm going to go this path, I think. We're going to revive the national bloc. Plus I like the idea of Laval and his trade deal opinion factor a bit more. Alright, let's do that. Then we have civilian factories. Now, how much do I want to build my infrastructure versus how do I want to build up my industry? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 civilian factories here because our infrastructure levels are actually really good already. So I think I'm going to start out building a couple of civilian factories. And then that'll allow us to militarize more quickly. We are also going to take the fairly standard opening, construction, production, and research. And then the military factories. Motorized modern light tanks, that's quite good. And then a bunch of different ships, which we will need to reorganize. We'll also need to take a look at our Navy and the Air Force, just to see where everything is deployed. And also the Army. This would actually be a very good opportunity to go take a look at the resistance. So if we go take a look at the occupied territories, we can see that this has also changed. This lists every territory which is ours, which is not a core. So basically everything that's not in France. As you can see, we have a lot of territories all over the world in many, many different places. And there are a couple of different options that we can do, and it also shows us like their abilities. First of all, this top line is how much resistance they have. Resistance basically costs you more manpower to maintain order there, I believe. I haven't actually played anywhere that has had resistance. I think that's going to be mostly the conquering nations as opposed to the reactionary nations. Then we have compliance. And compliance is more important to us because it's effectively how productive our colonial holdings are. So right now we're getting 70% compliance, which gives us the informants bonus. Enemy operative detection chance offset plus 0.25, so we're more likely to find their agents. Local police force, required garrison minus 25%, available recruitable population plus 0.5. So it means that we need to use less manpower to garrison these areas and we get more manpower from the locals. Reorganized workforce increases local resources and local factories by 10%. Volunteer program is recruitable population a whopping plus 20%. So as long as we have at least 58% compliance, we get 20% more manpower, plus of course the plus 0.5 from this. And then finally we have the new regime, which will give us a provisional government of Algeria. I haven't actually had any new regimes. This might be a way of spitting out puppets. Oh no, this is how you do collaboration governments, which I think is a fascist thing only. So this is like a legitimate government, which probably gives you more stuff. I don't know. Haven't actually had anything to do with that. The other button we can see here is what kind of garrison you have. So no longer do you need to just scatter weak units all over your country to keep suppressing people, which is very often why I've had much bigger armies than I ordinarily would fight with. And apparently this is a huge benefit in terms of how quickly the game runs. It's optimization. Because there were so many small weak units that the game had to keep track of, it lost a lot of its processing power. Now that this has been just like a off-screen number, effectively, it doesn't worry about that. You can choose your your default unit type. So you can say, okay, this is the unit type that we're going to use for the garrisons. This is going to be the Brigade Colonial. It shows us how much production it costs per suppression point, and also how much manpower it costs per suppression point. So the Brigade de Chars de Combat are actually super efficient in terms of suppression, because they're armoured, and it's really hard to fight against armoured units, which is where the armoured cars come in. That's a new unit type. However, they're going to be very, very expensive in terms of production, so you kind of want something which is somewhere between the two, depending on how much you worry about suppressing. We don't need to worry that much about suppressing, because again, these are not hostile populations, probably. So we're going to stick with the Brigade Colonial. Furthermore, I'm going to select you, and I'm going to give you that icon to remind me not to edit that template, because we probably do have some regular units that use it, which we'll need to basically create a duplicate of and then do a different unit type. And we can also choose what kind of oversight we have. So the default law, and then this is again something you can change on a nation-by-nation basis, particularly again if you're playing as Germany, where probably Austria will require less resistance quashing than, say, Czechoslovakia, or more likely even Poland. And there are various different things to consider for each level. I'm going to switch this to local autonomy, which means that we have no extra resistance fighting, but we do actually gain just natively compliance. This will also mean that we need less garrisons around, but the territories will give us less resources, less industry and all that stuff. But this is fine. I just want to build up their compliance until it's above 80, just to see what it does. Are there any other bonuses for having high compliance? I don't think so. Well, regardless, we're going to do that. And that has, as you can see, changed everywhere to this local autonomy. Now, do we have anywhere that is actually going to be fighting us? No. So you can use this to basically switch between areas that have resistance and those that don't. Nowhere is resisting us at the moment, so it's all good. And you can also click these buttons to change the overview of your colonial regions to show you what level compliance they have or what level resistance they have. So all of these areas are just 0. So that's good. Alright, let's go check out our production. Are we short weapons? We are very short on guns. Yeah, I seem to remember France having a big problem with that. So I think we're just going to double down on the gun production. And we'll also take a look at our colonials. We'll say that you are that. And you lot are the... Wait, are those templates any different? No. They're identical. Okay. But we'll probably just choose one of those to use regularly. Or we could make these smaller for the colonial fighting. That might be a better idea. The motorized, alpine, cavalry, mechanized, and then armored. Yeah, these are just tanks. This is a garbage division. We'll probably switch away from that. So yeah, let's just make more guns. Anyway, this seems to be a good spot to end this episode. So in the next one, we will actually do the mighty unpausing and also designing of armies and navies and air forces and all of that stuff, which is required before starting Heart of Iron. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you are enjoying this. Remember, you will be able to catch me live at 5 o'clock this evening GMT assuming of course you're watching it on the day of release, to see me playing this on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Mordred Viking. If you have enjoyed this on YouTube though, then be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, or you can comment in description below, and there's also a bunch of other stuff in the description, like a link to my Patreon if you wish to support the channel financially and everything that I do here and basically allow me to make my living. You can check out the Discord, which is where the community hangs out, and it's a really good place to ask questions, so if you have any queries or if you want to comment on anything, whatever, you can find that there. Also, we do organise multiplayer games from time to time. That is hosted on the Discord, and it's just generally the best mouthpiece for when I talk to you guys outside of videos. Other than that, twitch.tv. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.